Hey guys, Tanks here. I managed to get into the most recent beta test for an upcoming MMO, and spent enough time to get a good impression of what it has to offer. It's a 3D sequel to the popular 2D Korean MMO with a chibi art style, and it's called MapleStory 2. I've spent a large amount of time in MMOs, both Western and Korean, and am definitely a fan of the genre as a whole. Having said that, I tend to play them more for their combat and progression systems than the social side of things. I enjoy maximizing my skills and gear on a character and then putting those tools to use as part of a team in combat. My preferences are more on the PvE side of things more recently. I really love dungeon content in particular when it's done well. MapleStory 2 has a lot of the Korean MMO trappings with tons of cutscenes, brightly colored and obnoxious UIs, and over-the-top ability animations. The art style is definitely not my preferred taste, but it has a lot of character, and the blocked-out zones floating in the sky make for an interesting setting. I don't mind the childish aesthetic at all, but the game mechanics themselves do suffer from the way they seem to cater towards children. The game controls well with mouse and keyboard, but the movement feels better with a controller in my opinion, which is natively supported, which is nice. The introduction is incredibly handholdy, and the tutorial seems to go on forever. The combat is overly simplistic with an emphasis on button mashing or button holding. Character progression feels linear and uninteresting, and none of the classes seem to have any real depth to them. I looked at each class and read through all of their skill trees, and I couldn't find a single one that had any real intriguing interactions. There is a single class that seems to be built for tanking, as well as one single class made for healing, but the mechanics of the game don't really seem to support those roles. In my opinion, the so-called Holy Trinity in class design, that being tank, healer, DPS setup for group roles, is a mandatory aspect to party mechanics in a PvE setting. I have yet to see a single game prove me wrong in this regard. Every game that's tried to move away from the Holy Trinity has done so at their own peril. The core structure of the Holy Trinity gives each member in a group a specific role to perform and enables them to focus on their primary goal as a productive teammate. Without that structure, group-based PvE combat devolves into an every-man-for-himself kind of atmosphere, where each member of the group is only really responsible for themselves. Sure, you might have some buffs or healing you can provide, and you can aid your teammates from time to time, but the core combat loop is you basically ignoring the fact that you're even in a group. MapleStory 2 suffers from this lack of structure. Not having tank, healer, and DPS roles doesn't just remove options for the players to interact in a meaningful way with each other and their enemies, but it also limits design options for the combat and encounters themselves. If you don't have required tanks and healers, then you can't make mechanics that need to be soaked and healed, and all the bosses end up feeling very similar. They can't have any mechanics that are unforgiving, and each dungeon needs to be designed for groups with or without these forms of sustain because you're not requiring them in each party. In addition to there being a lack of depth in group play, there's a severe lack of depth in individual play as well due to the rather disappointing shallowness of class design. Combat feels overly simplistic and monotonous with no real interesting interactions. There are things you can dodge and should dodge from time to time, but otherwise you just mash whatever button does the most damage and press cooldowns as they pop up. Purely from a combat perspective, I'd say this game is a hard pass for people interested in depth and layering of mechanics. I was hoping for a game with goofy characters that could be amusing to grind in from time to time, but the combat had me bored from the moment I started, and after looking over the future abilities I could unlock from further monotonous questing and fighting, it didn't look like it was going to get any better even at max level. Overall, I was pretty disappointed in MapleStory 2 for myself, and for people more interested in the social aspect and cutesy nature of the game, it has some definite promise. But yeah, that's about all I have for now, so thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.